pressure just beneath my ribs, dull, nagging. I chalked it up to leftover tacos, maybe a bit of gas from last night. Nothing serious. But within an hour, I was hunched over my desk, drenched in sweat, gripping the wood like it was the only thing anchoring me to this world. My assistant, Denise, took one glance, went pale, and without waiting for my approval, dialed 911. By the time the paramedic stepped in, I was already on the floor, curled into myself, the pain sharp and relentless, stabbing with every breath. The inside of the ambulance felt more like a science lab, cold, bright, too clean. They fired off questions, but I could barely respond, teeth clenched, voice trembling. My numbers weren't looking good, a heart racing, blood pressure dropping fast. One of them mumbled something about a ruptured appendix. Emergency surgery, I heard someone say. That's when I reached for my phone, barely conscious, but needing her, Elena. My wife. My person. She answered on the third ring. The noise behind her gave everything away. Laughter, glasses clinking, a familiar song from our wedding playlist. Hello, she said, light and distant, like I'd interrupted something mildly annoying. Elena, I managed. I'm in the ambulance. They think it's my appendix, heading into surgery. There was silence. No gasp. No panicked questions. Just stillness. Then her voice again, calm, unbothered. I'm at Sophie's wedding. Another pause, then a sigh. Can we talk later? I froze. Maybe I'd misheard. I waited for her to say more. Where are you? I'm coming right now. But nothing came. Only her breathing, steady and soft, with a party echoing in the background. Then a quiet click. She ended the call. I stared at the phone, hoping I'd dialed wrong, that somehow I'd spoken to the wrong person. But no. She heard me. And she hung up. They wheeled me into the ER, and the phone slipped from my grip. A nurse caught it, bagged it with my wallet and keys. We're going to take good care of you, she said gently. It wasn't extraordinary kindness, just the kind that wasn't indifference. And that felt like everything. The pain intensified. Like something twisting me from the inside out. They gave me something through the fore, and the world blurred around the edges. A surgeon leaned in, explaining risks, saying they had to operate immediately. You'll be under soon. Can I see my wife? I asked. He shook his head. No one's arrived yet. I nodded, not in agreement, just because I didn't have the energy to argue. I was too tired, too sedated, too hollowed out by something deeper than the pain. She wasn't coming. I knew it. The last thing I remember is the nurse squeezing my hand, telling me to count backwards from 10. I think I made it to 6, maybe 7. When I came to, I was alone, not just in the physical sense. The pain in my side was manageable, but the silence, that was unbearable. No rush of footsteps, no gentle voice whispering my name, no familiar hand brushing hair from my forehead. Just a heart monitor beeping and ceiling tiles staring back at me like nothing had changed. A nurse entered with a smile. Surgery went well. We got it just in time. I nodded. I was alive. That counted, I suppose. Anyone coming to visit? She asked kindly. My daughter. Maybe. My voice caught. She's 7. I couldn't say wife. Not yet. Not after that. They moved me to a regular room. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I looked up, expecting her. A message. Anything. But my phone remained dark. Eventually, I asked to see it. One new message from my neighbor, Deborah. Bree is with me. Heard what happened. I'll bring her after school. Hang in there. I leaned back into the stiff mattress, one hand on the fresh bandage, the other wrapped around the phone like it might anchor me to something real. The only one reaching out was a child. My child. Tiny hands. A heart bigger than either of her parents ever deserved. The morphine dulled the physical pain, but nothing could touch the sting buried deep in my chest. I replayed that call again and again. Her voice, light as if I'd interrupted a shopping trip. Like I wasn't lying in the back of a speeding ambulance. Like I didn't matter. She didn't ask if I'd be okay. Didn't ask where I was. And that said everything I hadn't wanted to admit. Maybe the surgery didn't just remove a broken organ. Maybe it revealed a broken marriage. One that had been failing long before I ever felt the first cramp. The truth landed hard. I could have died. She wouldn't have known until the music stopped and the lights came up. And the worst part? I believed her when she said, "Can we talk later?" Some part of me was still saving space for her. But not Maya. Maya was on her way. And somehow, that was enough to keep breathing. The room was gray, not just in color, but in feeling. The kind of gray that seeps into your skin and dulls your sense of time. I lay there, wrapped in a fog, monitors beeping steady, throat sore from the tube they'd used during surgery. Every part of me felt foreign, taken apart, put back together. I blinked slowly, reassembling the world piece by piece. Then I felt it, small fingers slipping into mine. I turned my head, sluggish, heavy, and there she was, Maya, 7 years old, sitting on the edge of the bed like she belonged there. Her legs dangled, brushing the railing, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, rainbow hoodie with the unicorn patch peeling off at the corner. She didn't say much at first, just held my hand like she'd been doing it forever. "Hi, Daddy," she whispered. Her voice broke something wide open inside me. "You're here," I rasped. She nodded. "Deborah picked me up from school. She said you got hurt." Deborah, the neighbor who always offered to help when Elena had other things. I owed that woman more thanks than I could count. Because when I was broken open on that table, unconscious and alone, it wasn't my wife who showed up. It was a child. It wasn't my wife who showed up. It was my daughter, brought to me by someone who actually gave a damn. "I'm okay," I lied, squeezing Maya's small hand with what little strength I had left. "Just a bit sore." She gave me a look, the kind that made it clear she didn't buy it, not even a little. But she let it slide. "For now." "I brought Henry," she said, climbing up and placing her backpack beside me. She unzipped it and pulled out her old stuffed turtle, faded green and a little lopsided from years of love. "He's kinda loose now," she added. "But when I miss people, he keeps their secrets." Then she tucked him gently next to my arm like he belonged there. I laughed, wincing as pain rippled through me. "Thanks, sweetheart. I think I've got a few secrets that need keeping." She kept swinging her legs, a little faster now, watching me the way only a child can, with eyes too knowing for someone so small. Worry mixed with wonder, like she was studying something fragile. Then she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper, like it was just the two of us in the world. "Why didn't Mommy come?" That question hit harder than any surgeon's knife. I hesitated. What do you tell a 7-year-old when the truth would splinter something soft and sacred inside her? When the woman she trusted most had chosen champagne bubbles over blood and hospital walls. "She was at a wedding," I said slowly, spacing out each word like it might hurt less. I don't think she realized how serious it was. Maya didn't blink. She just stared at me, those wide eyes reflecting more than I could stand. And then, calmly, too calmly, she said, "That's not okay." I had nothing. No defense. No spin. No excuse that didn't sound hollow. She reached over, resting her hand on mine. "I'll stay," she whispered. And she did. For hours. She sat beside me like she had nowhere else more important to be. Humming softly, scribbling in her notebook, peeking over at the monitors like they held answers she could somehow fix. The nurses adored her. One brought her pudding. Another gave her a stethoscope to play with. And when Deborah came back with snacks and a blanket, I saw the concern in her eyes even though she tried to smile through it. "She's tough," Deborah said when Maya slipped away to use the bathroom. "She wouldn't leave if you asked her to." I nodded. "I know." The day melted into evening. I drifted in and out, the morphine tugging me under. But Maya's presence kept the world from spinning out. She didn't cry. Not once. She just stayed. Like an anchor in a storm I didn't know I was sailing through. At some point, I opened my eyes and found her curled at the foot of the bed, notebook hugged to her chest, Henry tucked under her chin. I reached over, gently flipped through the pages. Crayon drawings, bold and messy and beautiful. One stopped me cold, a picture of a hospital bed, a little girl sitting next to a man with a tube in his side. Below it, in uneven letters, "This is how I helped." I closed the notebook carefully, like it might break. A lump rose in my throat. She'd helped more than she would ever understand. Later, a nurse came in, checked my vitals, and glanced down at Maya with a soft smile. "She's been amazing," she whispered. "Most kids get scared in hospitals. She's like a little guardian angel." I nodded, unable to speak. My voice still caught somewhere behind everything I hadn't said. That night, Deborah finally coaxed Maya into going home to rest. And the moment the door closed, the quiet returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, vast, empty in the way that made your bones ache. Elena still hadn't called. Not a single message. I was alone again, in every way that mattered. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, fingers twitching in the spot Maya had held. The meds dulled the pain in my side, but inside, something still smoldered. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But the memory of Maya sitting there, brave and still, kept me from breaking. If she could hold it together in this cold, sterile place, then so could I. Before sleep claimed me, I whispered into the dark, as if the room itself might carry it forward. Thank you, Maya, for showing up. She was 7, but in that moment, she was everything. I woke to the sharp click of heels outside, a rhythm too precise to be a nurse. The door creaked, and there she was, Elena, still dressed like the celebration hadn't ended. Her hair was perfectly curled, each ringlet in place. Makeup intact, lipstick faded at the corners, but still there. She wore that lavender dress, the one she spent weeks debating, the one she claimed she might not even wear. Apparently, she had. Hey, she said gently, like stepping into the room required effort. You look better than I expected. I blinked, too drained to decipher if that was meant as comfort or insult. My throat was dry. My side throbbed. I tried to shift upright and winced. No, don't, she said, reaching out halfway before pulling her hand back like it wasn't sure what it wanted to do. It hovered, then dropped. Sorry I couldn't be here last night, she added, shrugging. Sophie's wedding ran long. That's how she explained it. Like time just got away from her. Not a decision. Not neglect. Just long. I looked at her and didn't see my wife. I saw someone dressed in silk and perfume, offering a kiss on the cheek that barely touched skin, as if her presence alone should be enough. She sat, legs crossed, glancing around the room with mild disgust. How are you feeling? She asked without looking me in the eye. I had a drain tube in me last night, I said. Still do. She nodded like I'd mentioned the weather. Well, I'm here now. Her eyes drifted over the room. The clutter, the smell of antiseptic, the signs of a place that had held real pain. This room's kind of depressing, she added. It's a hospital, I wanted to say. It wasn't meant for comfort. I didn't respond. Just watched her. She finally pulled out her phone, smiled at the screen. Sophie and Evan landed in Cabo, she said, scrolling. Oh, looks like they had some issues at the resort. Had to upgrade last minute. $2,000 more than expected. Can you believe that? I stared. She looked up, misreading my silence as openness. I know we already gave them the espresso machine, but do you think we could chip in? Just to help them get settled? I didn't even notice I was gripping the bed rail until my fingers went stiff and white. $2,000? I repeated it flatly, like I was reading the weather. You're asking me to cover someone else's honeymoon, while I'm lying in a hospital bed? Elena tilted her head slightly, like the question confused her. It's not a big deal, she said. You've helped them before. And it's not like we're struggling. That word hit wrong in my chest. Elena, I said, slowly, every word measured. I had emergency surgery last night. Alone. No one came. Not you. Not anyone. I could have died on that table. And the only way you would have known is if someone called you after it was over. She didn't flinch. Didn't say a word. Just looked away, lips pressed tight. Then her voice came back, tinged with defensiveness. You always do this. Make everything about how I let you down. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at her. You were at a wedding. You didn't know how serious it was, because you didn't ask. That stopped her. Not because it hurt, but because it was true. She turned back to her phone, not to check anything, just to avoid my eyes. The silence between us thickened, stretching so far it became something else. Something permanent. And then, without an ounce of self-awareness, she muttered, Can we talk about Sophie's thing later? They're really stressed, and I don't want to leave them hanging. I let out a breath that sounded like a laugh, but wasn't. Just disbelief. I haven't eaten solid food. I've got stitches in my side. And you want me to send money to Cabo? It's not about the money, she snapped sharp. It's about being there for people you love. That was it. The sentence that should have undone her, but instead came out proud. I stared at her. Let every word land. I was here last night, Elena. Cut open. Bleeding. Out of my mind on pain meds. And you didn't come. So maybe you're not the one who should be lecturing me about love. The words hit. I saw them land. Her face tightened, her jaw twitched. But she didn't apologize. Didn't even pretend to be sorry. Just looked inconvenienced. She stood, abruptly, smoothing her dress like that was the thing that needed fixing. I'll come back later. Maybe bring you something decent, if they say you can eat. Then she turned and walked out. No drama. No explanation. Just the sound of her heels, tapping away like it was a normal visit and not the moment everything broke for good. I stared at the closed door, the echo of her footsteps still hanging in the air. The heart monitor beeped beside me, steady and indifferent. It wasn't the painkillers that hollowed me out. It was the truth her exit left behind. She was gone when Maya came back. My daughter entered the room holding a coloring book and a bottle of chocolate milk. She slid into the chair beside me like she'd never left. Gave Henry the turtle a soft pat on the head and settled in. Mommy said she had to help Sophie, she said softly. She didn't even look up, like she already knew what she was saying didn't sit right with me. I nodded. That's what she said. Maya studied me for a moment, then reached into her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook. She flipped it open to a blank page and started writing. What are you working on? I asked. She didn't look up. Writing Mom a letter. I didn't ask what it said. I didn't have the strength. But deep down, I knew Maya would put into words what I couldn't. Maybe what I shouldn't. So I reached for her hand instead. Held it tightly. Because the only person who showed up without needing to be asked was a little girl with a stuffed turtle and a heart bigger than both of her parents combined. And in that moment, she was more than enough. The hours passed like syrup, thick, slow, hard to swallow. I didn't speak much. Didn't have to. The ache I felt wasn't just from the surgery. It was deeper, older. The kind of pain that doesn't go away with medicine. My body was healing, but my mind had already made a decision it wasn't going to forget. Elena returned, eventually. She didn't come close. Just curled into the vinyl armchair like a guest at a party she didn't want to attend. Legs crossed. Phone glowing in her hands. Thumbs tapping endlessly. She didn't ask how I slept. Didn't ask how I was feeling. Didn't glance at the drainage tube hanging from my side, half full of something that looked like cranberry juice left out in the sun. She smiled at her screen. Look at this one, she said aloud. Sophie's dress looked stunning in that light. She turned her phone toward me briefly. I didn't look. Didn't react. There was nothing left to say. The space between us had grown into something I couldn't cross anymore. Her world was lit in hashtags and filtered photos. Mine smelled like antiseptic and beeped on the monitor. Maya was beside me again. Her presence was the only calm in the room. She had her sketchbook, the thick spiral-bound one she loved. The corners were worn, crayon smudges along the edges. But today, she wasn't coloring. She was quiet, watching, soaking in the energy like she was trying to figure out how adults worked, how they sat so close but lived miles apart. Daddy? She whispered, tapping my arm. Can I see your chart? I blinked at her. Why? She shrugged. I just want to know what happened. I didn't question it. Not with her. Maya had always sensed things before anyone said a word. She could feel tension before it spoke, feel change before it arrived. I pointed toward the clipboard in the wall bracket. Go ahead. Just be careful. She climbed down, her little sneakers making soft sounds on the tile. Elena didn't even look up as Maya retrieved the paperwork tucked behind my daily chart. She studied it like a map, brow furrowed. Then, without a word, she slid it into the back pocket of her notebook and zipped it shut. What are you planning? I asked, more amused than worried. Maya looked at me and smiled faintly. I'm not sure yet, but I think Mom needs to read it. I should have stopped her. Should have said something. But I didn't. Because for the first time in days, I felt seen. Understood. It wasn't just my appendix that had ruptured. Something else had broken too, something between me and the woman sitting 5 feet away, still scrolling through vacation packages like our life wasn't bleeding out on a monitor right in front of her. That night, the room fell into a hush. Nurses came and went, their shoes whispering across the linoleum. The overhead lights dimmed to a soft yellow, humming faintly in the corners like background noise to my thoughts. Elena was still in the chair, legs curled under her, eyes glued to her screen. She was scrolling through reels, chuckling quietly at whatever filtered life passed in front of her. I wasn't sure what ached more, her silence, or the way her laughter felt miles away. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open across her lap. But she wasn't drawing. She was writing. Her glitter pen moved with care, each stroke deliberate. Her little tongue peeked out between her lips, the way it always did when she was focused. She flipped through a few pages, paused, then settled on a clean one. I watched, curious, too tired to speak. When she finished, she folded the page in half, then again, and pulled out a blank white envelope from her backpack like she'd planned it all along. She slid the paper inside, then reached for another, my discharge note. Where did you get that? I asked. She looked up, calm. Told Deborah I wanted to write a letter. I swallowed. My throat felt dry tight. Is it for me? She shook her head. It's for Mom. Those words didn't just land. They hit, rippling through me like a stone across still water. I didn't ask what she wrote. I didn't need to. Some part of me trusted Maya to say what I couldn't. what I'd long given up trying to explain. She sealed the envelope and looked over at me, her eyes steady. Can I leave it on her pillow when we get home? I hesitated, then nodded. Yes. She needs to know. Maya crawled into the chair beside me and rested her head against my shoulder. I winced from the weight, but I didn't move. I didn't want to. Do you think she'll be mad? She asked softly. I looked across the room. Elena was still laughing at her phone, lost in a world that no longer included us. Then I glanced down at the envelope resting beneath Maya's hand. She might be, I said honestly. But sometimes people need to hear the truth, even if it's hard. Maya nodded like she understood more than she should. Like she'd been carrying that knowledge far longer than any 7-year-old should have to. A nurse came in, checked my chart, adjusted my four. Maya yawned and let her head lean gently against the side of the bed. I reached out and brushed a loose curl from her forehead. Go to sleep, baby, I whispered. She nodded, hugging Henry close to her chest. Across the room, Elena glanced up just once. Just long enough to see us. Me and Maya folded into each other, quiet and still. Her expression flickered into something I couldn't quite name. But she didn't speak. Didn't ask about the envelope now nestled under Maya's palm. She simply went back to her scrolling. She paused only to tap a heart on a photo of Sophie and Evan, clinking glasses by candlelight. The monitors beeped steadily beside me. My stitches tugged with each breath. But none of it stung like knowing the most important moment of the day had slipped right past the woman I once called my partner. My daughter had written a letter, and I could only hope it would speak loud enough to be heard over 1,000 silent failures. We came home 3 days later, though calling it home didn't feel quite right anymore. It was just a structure now, walls, windows, and long echoes where closeness used to live. I moved slowly, hunched and tight, like a question mark dragging itself forward. Every step stretched my stitches. Every breath burned. But I said nothing. What was the point? Elena didn't speak much on the drive. Her fingers never left her phone, tapping in rhythm with the blink of the turn signal, like indifference set to music. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask if I needed help getting inside. When we pulled into the driveway, she climbed out first, heels clicking across the pavement, purse slung over one shoulder like a checklist item. Maya stayed close. One small hand on my elbow, steadying me. She was half my size, but somehow the only thing holding me upright. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner. The kind of clean that feels sterile, not comforting. Elena had hired someone to freshen up the place. Said it was so I wouldn't worry about mess when I got back. But it didn't feel like care. It felt like staging. I lowered myself onto the couch, each movement slow and sharp. Maya ran off, came back moments later with my favorite blanket, the one with the navy and gold checkers. She always said it made me look like a superhero. She draped it over me gently, then disappeared into the kitchen without a word. I heard drawers open, a chair scrape. I turned my head, just enough to see her sitting at the table again, notebook open. She was writing, not doodling, not coloring, writing. No stars or hearts in the corners, just clean lines, neat words, pressed into the page with the weight of something serious. She folded the letter, slid it into a new envelope, and then, carefully, took out the discharge note from her sketchbook. She placed it behind the letter and sealed it shut. She stared at the envelope for a moment before standing. Her movements were calm, intentional. I watched her walk down the hall, envelope in hand. She paused at the doorway to the bedroom, looked back at me, not for permission, but for reassurance. I gave her a soft nod. It was all I had. She turned the knob, stepped inside. A few seconds later, she came out empty-handed. Elena came down the stairs right after, dressed for work. Heels again. Full makeup. Her phone already tucked into her hand like it was breathing for her. I've got meetings this morning, she said, without looking at me. Did you take your meds? I did, I said. My voice cracked. It felt strange to speak again. The words scraped their way out, too raw. She glanced my way. I was flicking briefly over the blanket, the way I sat, lopsided and tender. But she didn't ask how I felt. Not really. Her gaze landed on Maya, who was now on the floor with Henry, gently brushing the turtle's plush head like she was tending to something broken. Elena moved into the kitchen, heels echoing. We're out of almond milk, she announced. Also, remind me to get a gift for Evan's mom. Her birthday's next week. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to be cold. I just didn't have the strength to keep walking towards someone who never took a single step in my direction. 10 minutes after she left, the front door shut quietly behind her. But the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It wasn't calm. It was confirmation. Everything I'd felt in that hospital bed, every flicker of distance, every missed glance, every unanswered call, wasn't in my head. It was real. It had roots. And now that I was home, I could see just how deep they went. Our lives weren't connected anymore, just overlapping out of old habit. Maya climbed into the chair next to me and rested her head on my shoulder. "She'll find it," she whispered. "She will," I said, placing my hand gently over hers. "She might be mad," she added, glancing up. "Maybe. Will she say anything?" I sighed. "I don't know." And I didn't. I had no idea what Elena would do with that envelope, whether she'd read it at all, whether she'd feel anything when she did. But I knew this. Someone had to say something. And Maya had done what neither of us had found the courage to do. At 7 years old, she stood taller than we had. Later that evening, I heard her footsteps upstairs. Then nothing. Stillness. I imagined her walking into the bedroom, seeing the envelope on her pillow. Maybe she'd recognize Maya's handwriting. Maybe she'd think it was a doodle, a drawing, a request for ice cream, or another visit to the zoo. But when she opened it, she'd realize it was something else. Something heavier. Something honest. I didn't follow her. I stayed right where I was, the TV murmuring in the background. Maya was curled up under my arm, clutching Henry to her chest. She didn't ask for cartoons. Didn't ask for a snack. She just stayed close. Quiet. Like she knew I needed her there more than I needed anything else. Maybe she was the patient. Maybe she was the caretaker. Or maybe we both were. Elena came downstairs eventually. Her footsteps were slower than usual. Her hands were empty. No phone. No purse. She walked right past us, paused at the kitchen doorway, and then turned around and went straight back upstairs. I didn't move. Maya lifted her head. "Do you think she read it?" "I think so." "She didn't say anything." "She doesn't know how," I said softly. Maya nodded, her expression older than her age. "She has to feel it first." And there it was, the most powerful thing I'd heard in weeks. Not from a therapist. Not from a friend. From a little girl with too much clarity for someone her size. The envelope had done what words never could. It had landed. Now we waited to see if it echoed. I never heard her open it. But I knew the moment she did. The house had settled into its nighttime rhythm, dishwasher humming in the kitchen, wood creaking gently as it cooled. Maya was already tucked in, one arm around Henry, the other under the blanket's edge. Her room was still. I was in the guest room. Not because anyone told me to be there, but because the idea of sleeping beside Elena felt like inviting a stranger into my grief. I lay in the quiet, staring at the ceiling, trying not to imagine her reaction. But I couldn't help it. I pictured her recognizing Maya's glittery handwriting, her fingers slipping inside the envelope, the weight of the words hitting before she was ready. Then I heard it. Her footsteps, soft and unsure, moving down the hall. They stopped outside the bedroom door. The floor creaked. Then silence. A long, loaded silence. Then as she sighed, a sound like something cracking in her chest. She didn't come in. I didn't go out. The door creaked open, then shut again, quiet and careful. I imagined her sitting on the bed in that low, amber light, holding the envelope, the discharge note, the letter, still unread by me, still sacred. I didn't need to see it. Maya had already said what I couldn't. She had seen it all, felt too much. And now, somehow, she had become the one who made us both look. I sat up, slow and stiff, the incision pulling tight. I made my way to the hallway, bracing myself on the doorframe. Everything inside me wanted to collapse, but I kept going. From under the bedroom door, a faint line of light spilled across the floor. Then I heard it, the faint rustle of paper. A breath caught in a throat. Her hands were trembling. I could hear it, not with my ears, but with something deeper. For the first time in forever, the silence didn't belong to me. It was hers. That shift nearly knocked me to the ground. I didn't knock, didn't speak. I turned and walked back into the guest room. Sat at the edge of the bed, stunned. She was finally seeing it. Not just Maya's words. Not just the hospital note. She was seeing me. All those dinners where I filled the silence alone. The birthdays I remembered even when mine was forgotten. All those nights, she turned her back instead of asking how my day was. The 1,000 kindnesses. The unreturned gestures. Now it was all in that room. With one small envelope and one letter she never saw coming. Not revenge. Not blame. Just reflection. An hour passed before I heard movement again. Soft footsteps returned to the hall, barefoot this time. Slower. She paused outside the guest room. I held my breath, not knowing what would come next. The door creaked open. She stepped in, pale, hair tied back, face bare. Her eyes were softer than I'd seen in years, but still cautious. Still holding something back. She didn't say my name. Just stood there. The envelope in one hand. The folded note in the other. I read it, she said quietly. I nodded. She took a step forward, like the floor might give beneath her. She wrote it herself? She asked. Yes. You didn't tell her to? No, I said. She didn't need help. Elena looked down at the letter again. Her eyes shimmered, not spilling, but trembling just at the edges. She said, she saw me laughing at pictures while you were hurting. Her voice broke a little. She said she was scared, not just for you, but for what it meant that I didn't care. I said nothing, not because I couldn't, but because she needed space. For once, she said, I didn't come when it mattered. She looked up at me. You didn't, I whispered. The words hung between us, sharp, cold, but true. Elena sat down in the corner chair. The same chair where she once scrolled through wedding photos while I lay broken in a hospital bed. Now she gripped its edges like it was the only thing keeping her from falling. I didn't think it was that serious, she said again. Like if she said it enough times, it might become something less than what it was. Like maybe if she said it again, it would sting less. You've always been strong, she murmured. You bounced back. I thought. You thought I could do it alone. I finished for her. And I did. But that wasn't the point. Her lips parted, then closed. She tried again. Nothing. Silence filled in the cracks where words should have gone. Why didn't you say anything? She asked finally. Why didn't you yell, or beg me to come? Because I didn't want to ask to matter, I said quietly. I needed to see if I already did. The stillness that followed wasn't bitter, it was bruised. It was the sound of bricks slipping from a wall she never realized she'd built. She looked at me, eyes glassy and red. I'm sorry. And I believed she wanted to mean it. I even believed she did, just for that moment. But I'd learned something about apologies. They weren't always the start of healing. Sometimes they were the period at the end of a sentence no one had the guts to rewrite. I nodded. That was all I could give. I left the rest untouched. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Henry, Maya's stuffed turtle. His soft shell looked even smaller in Elena's hands. She left him on my pillow too, she said. Told me he keeps secrets. He does, I said. But Maya doesn't. That made her smile. Barely. No, she doesn't. For a while, we sat in the same room, but said nothing more. We didn't dig into the hospital, or the wedding, or the growing silence that had replaced touch. We just existed, in the shadow of a letter, written in glitter ink, that somehow spoke more truth than all our years of dinner-time conversation combined. Eventually, Elena rose and moved toward the door. She paused, hand resting on the frame. I don't know how to fix this, she said. I nodded slowly. I don't either. But something had shifted. Not healed. Not forgiven. Just shifted. Because for the first time, her hands had shaken. And that meant, at last, she felt it. Morning crept in with the scent of burnt toast and something too quiet to name. The house felt strange. Still. Like even the walls had read Maya's letter and didn't know how to respond. I stayed in bed for a while, listening to Elena in the kitchen. She was clumsy with the pans, like she wasn't sure what to do without her phone to scroll. I got up slowly, body stiff and tight. The incision tugged with every breath. I didn't call out. Didn't make a sound. I just moved through the hallway like a ghost retracing an old life. In the kitchen, the light was harsh, too bright for this kind of tension. Elena stood by the stove, robe cinched too tight, hair pulled back into that defensive bun she wore when she didn't want to be seen. She turned when she heard me, but didn't smile. Scrambled eggs, she said. And toast. I forgot the timer on the first batch. The eggs looked rubbery. The toast was black on one side, limp on the other. But this wasn't a performance. It wasn't a gesture meant to impress. This was something else. Something quiet. An apology without a name. I sat at the table. Maya was already there, dressed for school. We hadn't said a word about it, but she was ready. Shoes on the wrong feet. Backpack at her side. A little crooked, like her thoughts. Elena placed a plate in front of me. No garnish. No pretense. Just food. How did you sleep? She asked, still standing. I chewed slowly before answering. Fine. She nodded and started wiping down the already clean counter. A nervous motion, more about her hands than the surface. I thought I'd take Maya to school today, so you can rest. Maya looked at me for confirmation, like she always did. Like I was still the compass in a world that had lost its map. That's fine, I said. Elena glanced back. Unless you'd rather I didn't. I paused, then shook my head. You should take her. Maya stood, slung her bag over her shoulder, and walked around the table. She kissed my temple gently. Text me later, she whispered. Always, I replied. She didn't kiss her mother. Just walked to the front door and waited. Elena followed. She stopped with her hand on the knob. Looked back like she had something to say, something stuck just behind her teeth, but it never made it out. Not yet. When the door closed behind them, the silence left behind felt heavier than either of them. I sat there for a long time, watching steam curl off rubbery eggs, staring at the toast like it might say something. It didn't. Around noon, my phone lit up. I reached for it, expecting Maya. A doodle. A little emoji note. Something warm. It wasn't her. It was an email from Sophie. Subject: thank you so much. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for the honeymoon contribution. Evan and I were so surprised. We landed in Cabo and upgraded our suite because of you too. You didn't have to, but we're so grateful. Can't wait to show you photos when we get back. I stopped breathing for a second. There hadn't been a contribution. I hadn't agreed to anything. Not in the hospital. Not when we got home. I stared at the screen, blinking hard. The words didn't register. They just echoed. I opened my banking app. There it was. A $5,000 transfer. Same night I came home. The air left my lungs like a punch. This wasn't thoughtlessness. This wasn't poor timing. This was betrayal, small, quiet, but complete. Theft of trust. Of dignity. Of the part of me that was still trying to feel human again. I placed the phone down gently, like it might explode. Because in a way, it already had. Later that day, the door opened. Elena stepped inside, work bag on her shoulder, keys in her hand. She paused when she saw me still at the table, like she'd expected the day to move forward without friction. How was your day? She asked. I didn't answer that. Sophie emailed, I said instead. She froze mid-step. She thanked us. For the honeymoon gift. Her gaze fell to the floor. I didn't agree to that, I said. I know, she replied, quietly. No deflection this time. No quick lie. Just the truth, plain and exposed. I didn't say yes, Elena. I know, she whispered again. And then I asked the only question left. Then why? She hesitated. Because they asked. Because I didn't want to say no. Because it felt easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. You didn't even ask for forgiveness. She finally looked up. Her eyes were rimmed red again, but there were no tears waiting there. Just exhaustion. Bone deep and worn out. I don't know how to fix what I've done. I nodded. You don't. Then I added, but that doesn't mean I'll keep pretending it's not broken. Her mouth opened like she wanted to respond, but nothing came out. So I stood up. Slowly. Every motion intentional. And I walked past her, back to the guest room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just closed it. That night, I lay in bed with my back to the door, staring into nothing until sleep finally took me. And in that silence, I understood something final in its simplicity. There were no apologies coming. Not real ones. Just routine, wrapped in the costume of love. And I had finally stopped waiting for, I'm sorry. A week slipped by like fog. Slow, sticky, and impossible to hold. I moved slower, not just because of the incision, but because of everything I was carrying. All the unspoken weight. Elena and I talked, sure, but only in the way strangers do. Past the salt. Car needs gas. Words with edges dull enough to survive in silence. Then came the invite. Brunch at Jillian's. One of her polished, linen and champagne productions with name cards and surface-level smiles. Elena insisted we should go. Everyone will be there, she said, her voice balancing between guilt and hope. It'll be good to show up. Show up for who? I asked. She didn't answer. I didn't want to go. The idea of listening to stories about honeymoons and centerpieces made my chest feel tight. But Maya overheard. She looked up from her cereal, eyes full of something I hadn't seen in a while, hope. Will Grandma be there? And at Jillian's dog? I nodded. Yeah, baby. They'll be there. Then can we go? Just for a little. So I said yes. Not for Elena. For Maya. We arrived to a house curated for comfort, candles lit, white furniture spotless, jazz floating from speakers you couldn't see. People greeted us with practiced smiles and polite air kisses. Elena's hand brushed against mine in the driveway, like she was testing the idea of us again. I kept my hands in my pockets. Inside, Jillian welcomed us like a host on morning TV. "Darling, you're glowing," she said, then turned to me, her smile flickering with practiced charm. "Oh, and look at you. You made it." "I'm not dead," I said, maybe too flat. She blinked, then gave a polite laugh, patting my arm like I was being cheeky. "You've always been the dry one." Maya darted outside, chasing after Jillian's corgi with a squeal of laughter that briefly brightened the whole room. In the dining area, everything was preset. Napkin rings, miniature name tags, place cards, everything in its place. Elena sat near the middle, right between Sophie and Evan, still glowing from Cabo. I was placed at the far end, next to Jillian's husband and a cousin I barely remembered, someone who once forgot my name at our wedding. I eased into my chair, feeling the pull of the incision as I did. Maya reappeared, breathless, cheeks flushed. Instead of taking her seat, she perched on the arm of mine. Her hand brushed against my shoulder. The meal began. Plates passed. Glasses clinked. And not one person mentioned the hospital. Not one person looked at me and asked, "How are you?" Sophie beamed as she described the honeymoon. "It was magical," she gushed. "The upgrade was perfect. The view, the champagne, and Evan surprised me with a spa day." Elena smiled, clapping softly. "You deserved it, Cass. You both worked so hard on the wedding." Their words floated around the table like currency, light, casual, empty. Sophie turned toward me. "And we never got a proper chance to say thank you. That money saved us. You're such a generous guy." I held her gaze for a long second, then took a sip of water instead of speaking. Someone brought up real estate. Another mentioned Pilates. Jillian launched into her cruise points and how she'd finally earned a Mediterranean upgrade. Every conversation felt like a laugh track from a show I'd never been cast in. Maya leaned in, her voice just above a whisper. "No one asked if you're okay." "No," I whispered back. They didn't. Down the table, Elena glanced up at me for a split second, then turned back to her glass, laughing at Evan's joke, or pretending to. Maya stayed beside me, quiet now, tugging at the hem of her dress. Her eyes scanned the table like she was memorizing it, like she saw it all more clearly than we ever had. The room grew louder, full of people who didn't know they'd left something bleeding behind. "Daddy," Maya said, so softly I almost missed it. "Can I say something?" I turned to her. Really looked. Of course. She stood. Just stood. The chair slid quietly behind her. Every adult head turned. Elena's smile flickered. "Maya," she said, her tone laced with warning. But Maya didn't stop. "My dad almost died," she said. Her voice was small, but sharp. It cut through everything. He had surgery. Real surgery. And he was alone. The room went silent. Mommy was at the wedding. No one came. She lifted a folded paper, my hospital discharge summary, like it was evidence. "I wrote Mommy a letter." She read it. "But none of you said sorry." She looked around. Calm. Honest. "You were busy with cake. And dresses." Sophie's mouth opened. Jillian blinked. Evan coughed. Elena stared at her daughter like she didn't recognize her. "I just thought you should know," Maya finished. And then she sat back down, pulled Henry from her pocket, held him in her lap like armor. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was seismic. It split something wide open that had been sealed shut too long. I reached for Maya's hand and held it tightly. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She had already said what mattered. Elena tried to raise her glass, to salvage the mood. But it was too late. The room had shifted. The performance was over. The truth had finally stepped into the light. We left before dessert that day. Elena didn't speak the entire drive home. Maya had fallen asleep in the back seat, Henry tucked under her chin like a secret. I kept my eyes on the road. The silence in the car wasn't empty, it was charged. Because I wasn't sitting there anymore. Not really. Inside, I was standing. Finally standing. Because my daughter had spoken the words I hadn't been able to. And there was no taking them back. We didn't talk much that night either. The silence wasn't cold. It was ancient. Fossilized. Something that had cracked open, finally, and now sat between us, jagged and untouched. Elena moved quietly around the kitchen, her steps softer than usual, like she was afraid to shake anything else loose. Maya had gone straight to her room. She didn't say she was tired, didn't ask for cartoons. She just walked upstairs, leaving a soft trail of glitter from her hair clip behind her, pulled the blanket over her chin, and faced the wall. I stood outside her door for a long moment. I didn't knock. I sat down on the hallway floor instead, the weight of everything pressing into my chest. It wasn't just what Maya said. It was how she said it, clear, steady, not as a child, not as a tantrum, but as someone who'd been watching, listening, waiting. She hadn't just spoken for me. She'd spoken for herself. The next morning was awkwardly quiet. Elena tiptoed through breakfast like she was pouring cereal over eggshells. She set the bowl in front of Maya gently, like it was an offering. Maya stirred it. Didn't eat. The flakes turned the milk a slow beige. I was thinking, Elena said cautiously. Maybe we could have a movie night tonight. Pizza. Just the three of us. Maya didn't look up. I cleared my throat. May? She raised her head. Her eyes met mine first, then shifted to her mom. Do we have to pretend again? Elena froze. Her hand on the cereal box stiffened. Pretend what? She asked. That everything's fine, Maya said. That you didn't forget Daddy in the hospital. That no one at brunch cared. Elena's fingers tightened. That's not fair, she said quietly. It's not supposed to be, Maya replied. No anger. Just the math of it all. Simple. Unarguable. Elena turned to me like she wanted a lifeline. A softened version of what just happened. But I didn't step in. I couldn't. Maya slid off her stool and walked down the hall. No door slam. Just silence. She's a child, Elena snapped. Her voice sharpened. You think that was appropriate? At brunch. She's a child, I repeated, who watched her father go into surgery alone and come out to a party. She doesn't understand the full context. She understands more than most adults in that room. Elena shook her head and turned away, wiping down a counter that didn't need cleaning. You always take her side. I exhaled. My knuckles dug into the chair. There shouldn't be sides, Elena. That's the problem. She didn't respond. Just scrubbed harder. As if silence could be erased with elbow grease. Later that day, Maya came back downstairs with her drawing notebook tucked under her arm. She climbed up beside me on the couch and opened it. Flipped past sketches of Henry, crooked rainbows, and unbalanced stick figures of us all smiling. What are you working on? I asked. She looked up, serious. I'm writing my speech. My brow lifted. Speech? She nodded. In case I have to say it again. I swallowed. You don't have to, sweetheart. You already said everything that needed saying. But what if they still don't get it? She asked, tapping the pen against the page. What if they pretend again? The question struck somewhere deep. Because I knew that space. The place where pretending becomes survival. Where silence gets wrapped in manners. Where pain hides behind polished silverware. They might, I admitted. But that doesn't mean you have to be quiet. She nodded and went back to writing. That evening, Elena approached with something forced in her movements. She had her phone in one hand, and Maya's folded pajamas in the other. I told Mom we won't be coming next weekend, she said. Told her we needed time. As a family. I nodded. Good. She set her phone down. Sat on the edge of the armchair. Her body looked heavier, like the truth had finally caught up. Do you want to talk? I think we've done enough talking, I said. It's time to listen. To what? To Maya. To yourself. To what this house sounds like now. She leaned forward. Her voice dropped. I didn't mean to let it get like this. I said nothing. Regret didn't move the needle anymore. It didn't fix what was ignored. I thought I was doing what I had to do to keep things together. To be a wife. A friend. You stopped being a partner. The words cut through the air clean. She nodded slowly. And you stopped asking me to be one, she whispered. I paused, surprised by the honesty in that sentence. You gave up on me, she added. And I didn't know how to fight for something that didn't want to be held anymore. The room tilted. Not with shouting. With truth. Real, overdue, undeniable truth. From down the hall, we heard Maya humming again. A soft tune, no words. Just a sound that floated through the silence like it was trying to stitch something broken. Elena looked at me. Her voice cracked. Is it too late? I don't know, I said. But if you're asking me that now, maybe it means you finally started to care again. She blinked. Her eyes watered, but didn't fall. I don't know how to fix this. You don't, I told her. You just show up. And stop expecting applause for doing what love requires. She looked down, shame flickering across her face. Maya came back into the room holding her notebook like it was sacred. Can I read you something? Elena nodded. I did too. She climbed into my lap, opened to a fresh page, and read. When someone you love is hurting, you're supposed to sit with them, not scroll through parties, not leave them alone. If you forget someone when they're scared, they won't feel safe with you again, even if you smile later. So I want people to know what hurting sounds like. so they won't do it too. Elena cried. Not loud. Not sobbing. Just quiet, aching tears. The kind that come when you realize you were the villain in a story you didn't even know was being written. Maya closed the notebook, satisfied, and placed Henry gently into her mother's lap. He keeps secrets, she said. But you shouldn't. Then she turned and walked back to her room. And for the first time in weeks, Elena didn't move. She just sat. Really sat. Not out of fatigue, not out of defeat, but like someone finally letting the silence settle in, no longer trying to sweep it away. The thing about healing is, no one tells you how quiet it is. Not peaceful quiet. Not calm. Just still. The kind of still that comes after an explosion. When everything's already been said, and all you're left with is the sound of your own breath and the realization of how long you've been holding it. The morning after Maya read her letter out loud, the house didn't bounce back. There were no apologies whispered over breakfast. No dramatic reconciliations waiting in the corners. There was only gray space between damage and decision. Elena was different, but not changed. She moved with more care. She spoke with more softness. But the air around her still hummed with guilt. The kind of guilt that wants to be forgiven, but doesn't quite know how to ask. I noticed her wedding ring was back. For weeks, it had sat unused in a dish by the sink, forgotten or ignored. Now, it had quietly returned to her finger, like she hoped it could speak on her behalf. She made breakfast that morning. Blueberry pancakes. Maya's favorite. She asked if I wanted coffee. I told her no. We didn't say much after that. We hadn't, really, since Maya's words turned this house into something closer to a courtroom than a home. Maya left for school hugging me twice and smiling up at me. You look almost healed, she said. After she was gone, Elena and I stood in the kitchen. Alone. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, her eyes scanning the space like it belonged to someone else. I've been trying, she said, barely above a whisper. I know. She looked at me. I don't know if it matters now. It does, I said. Just not the way you hoped. She swallowed. Hard. You're not here anymore, are you? My eyes didn't flinch. I'm in the house. But I haven't been home in a long time. There was no heat in the words. Just truth. I didn't think it would come to this, she murmured. Neither did I. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper, placed it on the counter between us. It was handwritten. An apology. The kind people write when they've been coached. When they finally understand what harm sounds like from the other side of silence. I didn't pick it up. I wrote it, she said, tapping it once. But I think I'm too late. You are, I said gently. But thank you for writing it anyway. She nodded, her fingers twitching nervously. What now? It wasn't the first time she'd asked that, but it was the first time she didn't expect me to hand her the answer. I've been looking at places, I said. Nothing far. Just enough to breathe. Her eyes didn't widen. No gasp. No breakdown. Just stillness. I think she knew. Maybe she'd known for years, and just kept hoping that silence would write us a different ending. For Maya, she asked, her voice cracking. For all of us, I said. She needs to see that love isn't supposed to feel like waiting. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I don't want to lose my family. You lost me, I said. The moment I realized you'd rather protect a party than hold my hand in an emergency room. I paused. This is just the part where we stop pretending it didn't happen. She reached out, bracing herself against the counter like the floor had tilted. I never hated you, I added. Even when it hurt. I just kept hoping you'd see me again. But you didn't. I glanced toward the hallway. Maya did. That's what saved me. Elena sank into the kitchen chair. The one Maya had once slapped a glittery dolphin sticker on that never peeled off cleanly. She didn't speak for a long while. I'll tell her, I said, about what's happening. I'll do it kindly. I won't poison her against you. Her shoulders dropped, heavy with relief. Thank you. She doesn't need to carry our failure, I said. She just needs to see us carry it carefully. The words settled like dust. Quiet, but present. That afternoon, I picked Maya up from school. She ran toward me, backpack bouncing, smile wide and easy. I braced for the questions. There were always questions. But she didn't ask. She slipped her hand into mine and walked to the car without a word. In the driveway, just before climbing in, she looked up. You're moving out, aren't you? I froze. Who told you? No one, she said softly. I just know. I heard you say you needed to breathe. I crouched slowly, feeling the pull of my stitches, and brushed a curl behind her ear. I love you more than anything. That's not changing. I know. I'll be close. You'll see me every day, after school, on weekends. We'll have our routines. She nodded. Can I have 2 bedrooms? She asked. One here and one there? You can have 2 homes, I said. And one heart. That one's always yours. She hugged me tight, tight enough that I had to breathe around it. When we got inside, Elena was waiting in the living room. Maya ran to her and hugged her without hesitation. I saw the surprise in Elena's eyes, and the way she held her daughter like something she was afraid she no longer deserved. I want you both to be happy, Maya said. That night, I packed a small bag. Nothing rushed, just what I needed. Elena helped in silence. She folded one of my old sweatshirts and laid it gently in the duffel. She didn't look up. When I reached the door, Maya stopped me. Wait, she said, sprinting to her room. She came back with Henry. He wants to go with you this time. I smiled, throat tight, as I took the turtle from her arms. Thank you, I said. She hugged me again, and this time, I let the tears come. I didn't hide them, didn't turn away. Elena stood by the door, arms crossed, eyes red, but not panicked, just still. You'll be okay, I said to her. So will she. She nodded. I hope you find your breath again. I already have, I said, and then I stepped outside, into the quiet, and for the first time in a long, long time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed.